Hello, this is Chuck Solomon, and welcome to the Candidate Experience Podcast, where we focus on the job candidate journey from apply to onboard and the space in between. Let's get started. You care about the candidate experience, but have you ever wondered exactly how to bring your company to that next level and offer a world-class experience to your candidates? It's not easy. Fortunately, Candidate.fyi can help. Their solution guides candidates through your hiring journey, enhancing transparency and communication at every touch point. You'll also gain valuable insights on what's working and what's not with your hiring process. Best of all, it integrates directly with your ATS. Head on over to Candidate.fyi and see how to transform your company's candidate experience today. Hello, this is Chuck Solomon, and I'm the host of the Candidate Experience Podcast. Today we have John Campbell joining us as our guest expert. Hello, John.
Chuck, how are you? It's great to be with you.
Likewise, for sure. John, can you tell folks a little bit about you? I think you do a better job of introducing yourself and what it is that you do, and help set the stage of why I invited you on there. I would go ahead and say I've known you for a couple of years. I think that you have an awesome perspective. You've definitely worked for some big name brand companies in the hiring space and stuff, but I'll be quiet. I'll let you tell everyone about yourself.
Okay, let me give a shameless plug for myself here. Appreciate that, Chuck. And so the majority of my career was spent on the corporate side of a variety of HR roles, including HR business partner, talent acquisition, some talent development. And I've done that in a variety of industries and, as you said, some big name companies as well. And a couple of years ago, in fact, I just passed my 2-year anniversary. I left the corporate world and decided to kind of strike out on my own and founded an HR consultancy primarily focused on talent management. And I call it talent outcomes. And my philosophy is a simple one. It's smarter people practices lead to better business results. And so I think that, if you focus on your organization, the people that you have within your organization and enable them to help you achieve your business outcomes, ultimately that's the best of both worlds. So hopefully through the way I'm able to work with smaller organizations and bring to bear the learnings I've had from those large corporate environments, can help create some value for them.
Thanks for sharing that. You've worked with a lot of big name companies, Cree, Quintiles, or I guess IQVIA now, and American Express, LabCorp, and probably some others I'm missing. Is your focus to work now with larger? I mean, these are Fortune 500 companies. Is your focus still on the large companies, or who's your ideal client company to work for now?
Sure. Yeah, so interesting. I think I can say very quickly, no, my target is not those large companies for a couple of reasons. One, because I've lived through the bureaucracy of those large companies on the inside, and no, as sitting on the other side of the desk, looking at vendors and trying to make decisions and engaging with vendors and dealing with budgets and all that stuff, it can be just a bureaucratic nightmare. And so what I really hope to do is take the experience of having worked in large companies and taking processes and practices to scale, and being able to take that and leverage that with small organizations. So my focus is primarily in the small to mid-sized companies. Anywhere from 50 to 500, would be a sweet spot for me. And again, the idea being that, it's where I think I can bring the most value to them from those larger corporate experiences. So I'm industry agnostic. I'll do it for any type of industry, and I think my background shows the diversity of industries I've been in. And so I think that gives me a certain appeal with folks that I haven't been just focused in one industry or segment.
Excellent. The show is about the candidate journey and the candidate experience. And I think as a way to sort of set up, hopefully some knowledge that you're going to drop here with our users here, that we can talk a little bit about sort of the bad and the ugly just for a little bit, and then sort of move into the more positive. I want this to be positive, not totally negative, but is there, I mean, have you, we have to sort of share, baby steps here, talk about the bad and why it's bad to sort of get to the good. But have you ever had an experience yourself personally that was like, you would consider pretty, a bad candidate's experience?
Unfortunately, I think I probably had more bad experiences than good, and
I'm sorry.
I hope I'm not the common denominator. I think it's more about the process, and frankly, just how organizations fail to put an emphasis on the candidate experience. At least in not the recent past, it seems that that's not been something that they were too worried about or concerned about, and so for me, part of when I've led talent acquisition functions, I've tried to infuse that mentality around, let's do what we can to kind of take care of candidates to the best of our ability, and so having those negative experiences are certainly not helpful, not to the organization, and certainly not to the individual. I can recount a couple of pretty interesting, I'll say, experiences in the sense that, that it kind of blew my mind just how bad it was given who was kind of leading it. So that to me is something to avoid, but happy to recount one if you're interested.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to share, we're all about it. If you want to spend a few seconds, we're not about... I don't want to be about shaming. No name, no name and names there. But if you want to name names, you're free to. But we're more about. My goal is hopefully maybe someone that has here's what your bad experience, and then says, hey. Oh, that's me. Not exactly, but I've done that. And then maybe, because I'm going to follow this up with, well, how can we make this better? So, but please, by all means, share your experience.
Okay. And I won't share any names. I can tell the story, and I think it'll have just as much impact. There's no need to necessarily embarrass anyone, and it's not some local company or entity, so I'm not certainly not concerned that way. But so this was where I was contacted. So here I'm the candidate. They reached out to me because they had an interest in my background. So I'm not even in active search at this point.
You're one of those so-called passives.
Passive, exactly right. And so. You think as a passive candidate, they'd be really even more interested in maintaining a good experience because they're trying to woo me, right? And so this happened to be a reach out from one of the top executive search firms, and you'd know the name in an instant. It's probably one of the top two that come to your mind when you think of executive search. And they reached out and on behalf of their client company, and it's a company that I had not heard of, and again, not based locally, but a company that had a kind of an interesting proposition as far as the opportunity. And so I listened, and it sounded good, and they were very effusive of their, how this company's moving in the right direction with talent acquisition, and they really need somebody with your background to bring a level of sophistication and professionalism, et cetera, whatever, saying all the right words that were getting me kind of interested in hearing more. And so I went through the process with them, had, the advocacy of the search firm, and I had a conversation with the principal, would be kind of the one of the main colleagues to this role, and then the hiring manager for this role. And interestingly, it was a phone or a video screen or video conversation, and it starts out. One of the individuals is late, of course, and you have that, but it's also the challenges with technology and things that kind of just frustrate anybody that whenever you get on a conference call or webinar, that kind of thing. But so we had that conversation. It went really well, frankly, and they sounded very interested, and I was very interested. And interestingly, from that point forward, you've heard the term ghosting. Well, they ghosted me, and not just the company, but the actual recruiting, the executive search firm. They ghosted me. They were the ones that put my name forward. They were the ones that said I was an ideal candidate. They were the ones that said that it seemed like a great fit, advocating on my behalf. And then they ghost me. And so I reached out a week later and I said, "You want to tell me where things are?" And they said, "Yeah, we'll be circling back to you. Yeah, we've got some things going on. We're trying to follow up with them." And
You're
this went on
waiting?
for a couple. I'm still waiting. And this goes on for a couple of weeks. And I call again, and they won't even return my call at this point. And instead of just saying, "John, they didn't like you, you're a doofus, whatever, I don't care," tell me, just close the loop for crying out loud.
Sure.
Nothing. And this is, again, the result was a negative in two things. One was as somebody who might be in the market to hire an executive search firm, in the roles that I might be in, I certainly would not hire this executive search firm based on that experience on how they treated me. And then the other thing is how they represented that company. If I was that company, I would have been embarrassed for the fact that they aren't following up with a candidate the way that represents us in the positive light. So it was interesting that the reason that they were interested in having somebody like me come and join that organization, they demonstrated those very negative kinds of behaviors that they were hoping somebody would be able to come in and be able to deal with and address. So anyway, it was something that left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, just simply because of the fact that, you'd think that people would be a little bit more concerned about how their reputation is being, delivered on their behalf anyway through this third party, and that you'd certainly think that an executive search firm with the reputation of this that they do have in the market would be very adept at managing their executive candidates. And so it was an unfortunate experience, but it was a learning experience for me too, because now I know what third party I certainly won't hire again.
You definitely learned what not to do. So
that's right.
It would have been, I don't know, a single ATS that doesn't have some sort of, close out this job email, even if it's just that auto email that says, "Thanks, candidate, but we're moving forward with someone else." I don't know about you, but I think that's better than nothing.
I agree.
Certainly, if that someone a candidate has been interviewed, then maybe a little bit more personalized, but I agree with you. Close the loop.
Exactly.
So I think thanks for that. That definitely gives a good illustration of what not to do. Let's switch gears here a bit, and let's get into what a company should do. So is there, what are you seeing out there, sort of the opposite of the example you just gave, but what are you seeing out there in the market where companies, in your opinion, are doing candidate experience well?
Yeah, so I think, organizations in general have come a long way with regard to the understanding the importance of the candidate experience. And I, on one of your previous podcasts with Alicia Parr, she mentioned the customer experience, which I believe very much is something that talent acquisition as a function needs to learn lessons from, and the organization should embrace the candidate experience just as they would the customer experience. So I think you've got, in this market and in many organizations, you have this energy around, okay, what can we do to help differentiate ourselves as a potential employer for folks? regardless of our industry, how do we ensure that we stand out in the minds of those that might be interested in considering a career here, and especially those folks that we would definitely want to consider a career here because of their background and the potential fit here. So I think, as an example, one of the organizations that I worked with while I was on the corporate side most recently was a local technology manufacturing company called Cree. And I think for those folks in this market, they're probably very familiar with Cree, for their silicon carbide chips and for their LED lighting. And so, that is an organization that was founded here and has been here for quite a long time and has undergone lots of different changes throughout its history. When I joined, there was, I think, a challenge with the candidate experience. Clearly, there were some kind of antiquated processes. There were some, I think, some legacy sort of thinking around how to treat candidates, not by the recruiting team so much as maybe by the hiring managers and those folks that were responsible for interviewing. And so one of the things that we knew that is always a challenge in any organization, you can only control those things that you have direct accountability or responsibility for. And so in a talent acquisition function, and this was certainly true at Cree, you can't directly control what a hiring manager or a hiring team does or doesn't do during the course of an interview process. The things you can do is you can help educate them, certainly, and you can help lay out a process and a practice. But when it comes down to, is the hiring or interviewer going to show up on time? Are they going to ask the right questions? Are they going to probe right, and follow up and that sort of thing? Or are they going to, simply just do what they've always done? And what we can control, though, from a recruiter standpoint, is we can control what we do, the talent acquisition team. And so
Sure.
one of the first things we did was to say, in a process, there are two parts of the process that we have absolute control over. And this is when I'm talking about, kind of the face-to-face interview process when somebody shows up on your doorstep to be interviewed. We, talent acquisition, the recruiter, has the absolute ability to control that environment by meeting the candidate, being there present when the candidate shows up, greeting them and taking them to their place of interview, whether it's a conference room or somebody's office, and kind of being that liaison to the organization, that representative of the organization, because they have the relationship already with the candidate. They are the ones that have been talking to the candidate. They are the ones that have convinced the hiring manager that this candidate is worth bringing in for a face-to-face.
Yep.
So here we are. So now, step one, candidate and recruiter are meeting face-to-face. And this is an opportunity to, again, reiterate what it is about the organization, the brand of the organization, the kind of value proposition of joining the organization. So we made sure that was happening. And then, obviously we did what we could to ensure that the members of the interview team would show up on time. If they didn't, there would be a discussion with them, a debrief about why it's important to do that. And if we can't cancel interviews in the middle of the day, when somebody's here and they might have traveled in, et cetera. And so those were things that we knew we didn't have direct control over. So we just kind of, continued to educate. But the end of the process, and that's when the day is wrapping up with that individual, we also have absolute control over that. So the recruiter goes and meets the candidate at the end of the day. That's the last face they see on their way out the door. So they can ask any final questions. They can ascertain if the candidate had any particular problems or issues with the candidate, with the experience that they had during the interview. And ultimately, they are hopefully leaving the candidate with a decent impression about their visit there as they head out the door. And then, of course, ensuring that we follow up in a timely manner, et cetera. So I think that's a very, very simple sort of way of ensuring that you have some quality checks in place around the interview process. Now, Cree is, at the time I was there, we also created what we called the Candidate Bill of Rights, which is posted on their website. It's still there if you go out today. They've taken it to the next level, and I commend them for continuing forward after I left there, certainly, and really have done an incredible job of changing the environment around interviewing and talent selection there. And I think that sometimes the biggest changes in organizations start with the smallest, simplest things. And so for me, I think, if you want to look at an employer that is doing it right and getting it right, I think, Cree would be one of those to look at. The other thing that I thought was important that we do was, using, like you do with a customer, does the customer recommend you to their friends and family? That net promoter score idea.
Sure.
We surveyed candidates after their experience to see how it went, right? Whether they got hired or not. And so, we used a very simple survey tool that's specifically designed for Net Promoter Score, and it was actually free, and it allowed us to be able to go out and survey folks and get some data back to see are there opportunities for us to be able to improve the experience. So again, simple tools executed or implemented effectively and consistently, I think really help drive change. And I really do think Cree is kind of leading the effort in that regard.
I couldn't agree more. And just for the sake of our listeners, local to John and I is the Research Triangle Park area, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. That's where Cree is located. That's where John and myself are located. You had said local. And I got me thinking, if I'm sitting in Seattle, I've never heard of Cree before, but
good point.
if I'm sitting in Durham, of course I've heard of Cree and stuff, but great examples there. I think, I'll ask you to have the recruiter walk someone in and be the greeter and walk someone out. I think it's being a good host. How much did that cost Cree to do that?
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an investment in the process and the individual. So the time that it takes is next to nothing compared to the ROI that you see.
Right. Awesome. Well, thanks for that, John. I appreciate that. So, is there can you describe a perfect, if you had unlimited budget and you could create the perfect or stellar candidate experience, what might that look like?
Yeah. And I don't think it takes an unlimited budget. I just think it takes some commitment and, commitment in people's willingness to create a process and a practice that puts the candidate at the forefront and understands. And it's a simple self-reflection. How would you want to be treated when you go and interview with an organization is exactly how you should be treating those that are in the process. And so for me, it's understanding what to expect. So again, like any company, lots of companies do this, and I think it's smart. Line out for those candidates. What is it that they could expect? What's the process look like? What's the timing look like? Perhaps what are you going to want to know about them during the interview process? How to dress? Those kinds of things. What to expect during their interview day, and then the commitment to them. And again, I talk about this candidate bill of rights, which I think again is something that it shows that commitment. That we will, treat you this way, that this is the timing associated with how we operate, that you will get an answer, and we will close the loop with you one way or the other in a timely manner. And if, and some take it to the next level, which is if you come and you interview face to face, you will get a personal phone call from the hiring manager or from the recruiter to explain why you might not have been selected to continue in the process, as opposed to maybe an email. Either way, at least closing the loop, I think, is critical for all candidates. No one likes to go into the black hole. No one likes to get ghosted. I shared my experience earlier. That just does not leave a good taste in your mouth for any organization around anything. And you got to think about it as a customer. These candidates, especially if it's a consumer products company or some services company, my gosh, a candidate is very likely going to be a customer. And so if you're treating the candidate in a way that's not positive, what do you expect they're going to be like as a customer? Do you think they're going to want to, shop your products or buy your services? there's a good chance they won't. And certainly we all know that the negative experience in anything is far more likely to get communicated out through people's networks than a positive experience. So, anything you can do to guard against that negativism that can creep in, and just doing thoughtful things through the process, treating people with respect, demonstrating a commitment to a process that where everybody goes through the same thing, and has a similar experience. And again, I think you end up with, whether somebody gets the job or not, I think you can pretty much ensure yourself that they will walk away from the experience at least saying, hey, that organization treated me right. I would have no problem recommending somebody consider working for them because of the way I was treated. I might not have gotten the job I wanted, but I certainly have respect for that organization and how they do things. So for me, that's the ideal candidate process where, you keep people informed. There's none of this, treating them as though they're lucky to have you, consider them. It should be just the other way. You're lucky as the company that they are considering you.
Yeah, and I would say even luckier. They just announced the February unemployment rate. It dropped from 4% down to 3.8%. So I totally agree. Being it's getting more and more competitive out there. So and I love what you said about you treating your candidates like how you would treat your customers. I think that's spot on, John. So thank you for sharing this. If people want to go ahead and get in contact with you, how would someone do that? Sure.
So you can reach me at my website, which is talentoutcomes.com, one word, or at john@talentoutcomes.com.
Awesome, John. Thanks for coming as a guest here, and really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chuck. It's been great, and I look forward to hearing more of your podcast.
Thank you. So that goes for everyone. Please go ahead and subscribe. You can visit us on our website, which is thecx.xyz. That's thecx.xyz. Thanks again, John. Thanks for listening to the Candidate Experience Podcast. You can reach out to us via our website, thecx.xyz. That's thecx.xyz.